I think we shouldn't use the expression the creative arts, because it suggests that the arts are the creative bit of education and everything else is not creative. And this does a disservice to all the other disciplines, and it isolates the arts even more in education. There are very powerful reasons for having the arts, which are to do with the forms of creative thinking they facilitate, but they're also to do with cultural knowledge, with the expression of personal values and feelings, with the manipulation of materials and ideas. And actually they have much more in common with the sciences than people commonly think. So a creative curriculum is for everybody, and it's about the entire curriculum. And the third misconception is there's nothing you can do about it, creative or you're not. And the truth is, there's a huge amount you can do to make people more creative. There are skills to learn, there are disciplines to learn, and there are processes that people can get better at. I think of creativity in two headings, really. There's general creativity and personal creativity. By general creativity, I mean the skills of more productive thinking. There's a great, do you know Pixar? Do you know the movie company that did, what have they done? Toy Story, yeah, and The Incredibles, and Captain Nemo and stuff like that. They have a fantastic culture, and part of it is that when they have their storyboard meetings, they have a technique called plussing. Plussing is a very simple technique. In plussing, all it means is that you have to accept other people's ideas and build on them. So you're not allowed in their meetings to say but or no. You can't say those words. You have to say yes and. Even if you actually disagree and you want to move forward, you have to say yes and build on other people's ideas. Because you know what it's like, if you venture in some ideas and people say, well, no, but, you immediately feel kind of down by it. And the whole thing is to keep people up. A good example is in improv, you know, in theatre. You know, if two actors are doing an improvisation, and one comes to the stage, and they're going to start the improv off, and the actor says to the other actor, isn't this a great day at the beach? And the other one says, well, we're not at the beach, are we? We're at the bus stop. Good night, you know, that's the end of the improvisation, thank you very much. Oh no, that's right, we're not. But if the first actor comes on and says, isn't this a beautiful day at the beach? And the other one says, yes, but what a curious place to put a bus stop. Then you've got something to work on. You've got an interesting idea that you can work with. And you get to it by people adding, not subtracting from what you're saying. So there are generic skills of creative thinking, and there are lots of people out there working on these things like de Bono and synectics and so on. And I think we should teach them in schools. I think we should give people the opportunity to learn the skills of more productive thinking, of generating ideas, and of the critical skills needed to evaluate them and sort them. But there's also something called, which I call personal creativity. And personal creativity is what it sounds like. It's about people being in their element. For some people, it's music. And it's not all music, it's the flute. And it's not all flute music, it's jazz. For some people, it's rock and roll. For some people, it's not all sport, it's basketball. Or it's soccer. When people are they just get it, and they're fit for it, and this is the thing they want to do. And for that reason, among others, we need a curriculum which is broadly based, because people often don't discover these talents unless they have the opportunity to try them. And one of the reasons for having a broader curriculum is personal. It's to give students the opportunity to try out the range of their own talents and abilities and to find the things where they are most alive. If you go through the whole of your education never discovering anything you're good at, you eventually start to believe that you're not good at anything. And all the evidence I've ever come across is when people get to discover things they enjoy and love to do, they tend to get better at everything because their confidence rises with it. There are three, let me kind of wrap this up here. When politicians talk about getting back to basics, it seems to me there are three basics. The first is personal. Education is a personal business. How many of you here have got 2 or more children? Okay. Well, I'm one of 7 kids. And do you have brothers and sisters? Well, I bet you, if you've got brothers and sisters, or even one, if you have 2 or more children, I bet you that they are completely different from each other. Aren't they? Kids are. Even if they're identical twins, they're different. You know, if you've got 2 kids, you wouldn't ever confuse them, would you? I think, which one are you? You know, you are so alike and barely tell you apart. And the reason is that all human beings are different. We have much in common, but we're all unique moments in history. And we all have our reasons and our motivations and our views and our dispositions, and every student in school does. And when people drop out of school or disengage from school, they have reasons for it. They think it's not relevant, or they feel demeaned by it, or they don't see the point of it. Whatever those reasons are, it doesn't appeal to them. It's interesting to me that all the programs that are designed to get kids back into school, those who pull out or pull away, are all based on personalising the education process to them. And all the great teachers always knew that. It's why great teachers are great, because they connect with people, they look in their eyes and see who they are, and try to make this relevant to them. I was trying to argue this morning at the department, that great teachers are people who know their disciplines, but they're also people who are able to engage other people in their disciplines. There are too many people, I think, particularly in universities, who are good at their disciplines but are hopeless at engaging anybody in them. And they're not bad people, they're just bad teachers. They should do something else for their own good. But there are great teachers everywhere, and the great teachers are the ones who engage people. So the first big purpose of education is personal. It's to help people discover their talents, their abilities, to deepen their skill base, and to help them leave school feeling confident and ready for the future, as well as settled in the present. The second big purpose is cultural. We live in a world of other people who have very different values, and a world of very different traditions, and part of the role of education is to engage all of us in other people's worldviews and to understand them, as well as in understanding our own values and where they came from. The cultural purposes are deep and profound, and the arts and humanities and sciences all contribute to that properly conceived, and it involves a lot of factual learning as well. But the third purpose of education is economic. Often people argue, well, education, we can't get involved in the economy. We cannot not get involved in it. Because we all assume that if education does its job properly, people will be better placed to find work and to be economically independent. We all want that. Those of us who are parents want our kids to be economically independent. I mean, I do. I can't tell you how much I want my children to be economically independent, and as soon as possible. But what we have to face up to is that the world is changing economically. It's not the world of 1950, it's not the world of 1960. There are jobs now that weren't thought of when public education was conceived of in industries that hadn't been invented. And many of them are being borne along by the digital technologies. And in these industries especially, innovation and creativity are absolutely fundamental attributes. There was a report published in the autumn by IBM, which was based on a survey of 3,000 CEOs, chief executive officers of companies all across the world. Companies, corporations, public institutions, not-for-profits, 3,000. I can't remember the name of the report, but I'll find out for you. 3,000 of them. And they were asked what they felt were the greatest challenges they faced in their role as leaders. And they said it came down to these. The first was, how do you cope with complexity? How do you run an organization that can deal with complexity, because the world is more complex? Secondly, how do you run organizations which are adaptable to change and resilient, not rigid? And thirdly, and this was their top priority, how do you run an organization that promotes and develops and celebrates creativity? Because for companies all around the world, in every field, being creative, having new ideas and being able to respond to change is a fundamental bottom line economic issue. President Obama a few months ago gave his State of the Union address, and the heart of it, he said, was the need for America to promote skills of innovation, particularly through education. These are not fanciful, romantic ideas. They're hard-headed processes that need to be at the centre of our education system. Our current system, to answer Anne's question, doesn't do a good job of it. And it's not, I think, because teachers don't want to. When we did all our futures, it was strongly embraced by the whole profession. It's because we've had systems in place and principles and priorities which are inhibiting and which promote certain types of standardised testing very often, and a fear of making mistakes. And if you're fearful of making mistakes, it's often hostile to the process of being creative. So it's about creating the right conditions. And that's what creative leaders do. Not far from Las Vegas is a place called Death Valley. Have you ever seen it or know of it? Death Valley is the hottest place in America, and nothing grows there because it doesn't rain. In the winter of 2004, it rained in Death Valley, 7 inches of rain fell on Death Valley. And in the spring of 2005, there was this phenomenon. The whole floor of Death Valley was carpeted in flowers. You can go online and see this. It's a fantastic sight. The whole of Death Valley was like a pasture. Well, what it showed is that Death Valley isn't dead. It's dormant. Now, right beneath the surface are these seeds of possibility, waiting for the conditions to come. And when the conditions are right, life is inevitable. That's the way it is with organic systems. Create the right conditions, things grow. And then it stopped raining and Death Valley returned to being this wilderness, apart from Las Vegas. And the seeds we know, though, are still there, waiting for the next time. And I believe that schools and human organizations are exactly the same. That human organizations are like organisms. They depend on feelings and values and energy. And if the conditions are right, they flourish, and if they're not, they don't. And I have seen schools in my career which have been transformed by a new head teacher coming in, by new staff coming in with a vision for it, where kids have felt despairing and a sense of aimlessness, who've been inspired and have achieved things that you would not have imagined. Sometimes using arts programs, sometimes using science programs, but always using the inspiration of a creative form of engagement. And you can take any community, any school, and with the right conditions transform it into a fertile place of possibility. And the roles of government are to help create those conditions. But where those conditions are not being offered, then we have to get on and create them for ourselves. But we should do that anyway. And I think if we do that, if we invest properly in the creative spirit of our students and of our teachers, we'll have a harvest of possibility here that we couldn't anticipate. And I think we'll collectively create a future that we'll all want to live in.